him because the state ends up trying him. So if he had not made all those statements to the cops right after he had killed this dude, then it for sure would have been a way easier case for him to beat. Now, that being said, I'm not really that worried because I know that I myself haven't been involved in any criminality, but I figured I would have my lawyer take care of it. So my lawyer reaches out to the guy who came to my door. She assures me that she's going to be able to ask the FBI agent a handful of questions, and from that information be able to ascertain, is Adam in trouble? Is Adam going to be, forced to hand over a crazy amount of information? Because that was kind of lingering around in my head is like, God, this is going to be a huge pain in the ass if they want to confiscate all the computers and everything in here. We're going to have to, buy a bunch of computers to use.
Where's the furnace? Set to start the furnace up, guys.
I don't know. I was considering that. I have not destroyed any information for the record. But this is the thing that my lawyer comes back to me with. She said the feds were interested in one thing and one thing only. Because in my head, I'm thinking they're going to want copies of the podcasts that Brick or Luce were on. They're going to want to make sure that there wasn't anything in those podcasts that was edited out. Now, anybody who knows me and No Jumper knows that we really don't like to edit things out. So the only stuff we're editing out is if it's like a 4-alarm fire, like, yo, we need to take this out. So I don't think there's ever been something that Brick or Luce told us that they needed us to edit out. But the one thing that the feds wanted was the cease and desist from Big U to No Jumper, asking us to take down the episode in which Loose Cannon first made the explosive statements that suggested that Big U had previous knowledge of Nipsey Hussle's death. Now, that situation is very much outside of what was mentioned in the indictment. In the indictment, there's nothing about Nipsey. There's nothing about any of that stuff. So this to me is kind of massive because it makes me feel like, oh, the FBI is interested in what Big U's involvement in Nipsey's death might be, which to me seems gigantic. I don't know why that cease and desist is not going to help them prosecute Brick Baby or Loose Cannon or anybody else. But the fact that they're interested in that, to me, adds quite a bit of credibility to the argument that perhaps Nipsey Hussle's death was a more complicated situation than it appears to be.
Well, isn't that when this
gave it to him though?
Isn't
we did hand it over? Yep.
Isn't this when that that
was it?
I mean, really,
So it's safe to say you the feds.
I'm happy to help the feds with talking about a document that we have previously discussed on here over and over, and which doesn't implicate anybody that I know or whatever. It's not like I know about Big U doing something illegal. Big U did something perfectly legal by sending over a document to us asking us to remove a piece of content. Now, for the record, it doesn't mean that this means that there's a full-scale investigation into Big U's involvement in this situation.
You don't feel like you played no part in them getting booked at all?
No.
Like
really.
with the shit they set up here and you clipping it up. I mean, I get you live and people might be able to screen record, but some of the shit these niggas is saying, you sitting back, like even the feds probably like, I can't believe like these niggas is this dumb. Well, then you clip it up to reiterate what they said.
My attitude is basically if somebody comes on the podcast and they want to live their truth, they want to talk about the things that they've been through, then it's none of my business to dig through each podcast and figure out what's criminal, what might come back to get them. Because let's be real, this is hip hop where a huge percentage of people's lyrics, songs, etc., are basically putting them in the mix and acknowledging that they've been involved with crimes. And, when I'm sitting there and Loose Cannon's saying, because keep in mind, this is my first time even understanding that Big U might have had any involvement in any street stuff still, when Loose Cannon's sitting there and saying, yeah, me and Big U went to this weed spot and we got all this money out of them, and then Big U didn't split the money up fairly and yada, yada. I'm sitting there thinking, Big U's on that? Like, I had no idea that Big U would have been doing anything that could be considered extortion or, payments for checking in, whatever.
No, not a guess.
In retrospect, I feel a little naive since he did call his podcast that and he was talking about the checking in process pretty openly.
He talked about
it on the
Breakfast
At the end of the
Club.
day, we see, we understand the bottom line is the money. So at the end of the day, like you just said, if they come on here and you ask them certain questions and they're dumb enough to speak on that, yeah, it's partly their fault, but you don't think the questions you ask are strategically bringing certain things about them?
Well, it's not like I could have even asked about that since I didn't know anything about that. They just started talking about
like, who are y'all talking about?
No, look. See, me, I'm talking about Brick. Now, as far as guests that come on and willingly tell on themselves, that's 100% on them.
Okay,
I don't blame platforms for dumbasses coming on the internet where you know the police are watching every platform.